The air was thick with frost and fear. Moonlight barely touched the jagged stones of the marketplace, where humans and wolves alike whispered and watched. Tonight was no ordinary night. Tonight debts would be paid and lives would be changed forever. At the center of the square, bound in silver chains that glinted like cold fire, stood the Omega. Her eyes, wide with fury and defiance, darted to the figure stepping forward. The Alpha King. He moved with the weight of command, a presence that demanded obedience without a word. His coat of dark fur brushed against the snow-dusted stones, and his piercing eyes scanned the crowd, calculating, commanding. The murmurs of onlookers faded as he approached the Omega. She held her chin high even as the chains bit into her wrists. Her voice rang out clear and sharp, cutting through the cold night air. "You paid for me. Now do it," she screamed. A hush fell. The words echoed off the stone walls, filled with both anger and challenge. The Alpha King paused, studying her, sensing something beneath her fury. Most Omegas would have whimpered, would have begged. But she dared to demand. The crowd shifted uneasily. Some gasped, some smiled, expecting the Alpha to punish her for insolence. But he did not. Slowly, deliberately, he reached for the ancient sigil etched onto his staff. A mark of the Luna Wolf bond. A ritual few had ever seen. The Omega's eyes widened. "You do not understand what you call for," he said, his voice low and resonant, like the growl of a distant storm. "But since you demand, you will see the truth of your words." With a sweep of his hand, he traced symbols in the air, glowing faintly silver under the moonlight. The chains binding the Omega rattled and then fell away, as if burned by invisible fire. She stumbled back, eyes wide in fear and disbelief. The air thickened, charged with power, and a low hum filled the marketplace. Her heart pounded. Something deep inside her stirred. A pulse of magic, a heat in her veins she had never known. Her body shivered as fur sprouted along her arms and shoulders, silver and sleek, shimmering like moonlight. Her ears elongated, sharp and attuned. A tail swept behind her, instinctive and proud. She was changing. She was no longer just an Omega. She was a Luna Wolf. The Alpha King's eyes softened just for a moment as he watched her transformation. He did not touch her. The ritual was hers to survive, hers to accept or reject. But the pull of the bond was strong, weaving threads of connection between them. He had called her power to life, and in doing so had claimed not just her body but her destiny. The crowd gasped, whispering in fear and awe. Few had ever seen a Luna Wolf awaken, and fewer still had survived the process. But the Omega, fierce and trembling, lifted her chin. Her eyes met his, and in that gaze, a storm raged, anger, defiance, and something else. Something unspoken. "You think I am yours because of chains or rituals," she said, her voice trembling but strong. "You are wrong." The Alpha inclined his head slightly, a shadow of a smile brushing his lips. "We shall see," he said. "The bond will test us both." As the crowd dispersed, leaving snow and silence in their wake, the Omega felt her strength grow. Her senses expanded. She could feel the cold bite of the wind in her fur, hear the distant rustle of the trees, smell the faint trace of danger in the night. The world had changed, and she was no longer powerless. But the Alpha, he was still a mystery, a storm she could not predict, a presence that both terrified and fascinated her. Hours passed. They walked through the frozen forest, his dark form ahead, hers following, awkward yet instinctive in her new body. Moonlight painted silver patterns on the snow, and the forest seemed alive with whispers. She could sense the Alpha's power in the air around him, the controlled tension in his muscles, the quiet authority in every step. "You are stronger than most Omegas," he said finally, breaking the silence. "Stronger than I expected." "I am no one's servant," she replied, keeping her voice steady despite the way her body thrummed with new energy. "Not even yours." He chuckled softly, a sound that rumbled through the trees like distant thunder. "Servitude is not what this is. This is a bond, a connection that will shape both our fates. You cannot run from it, and I cannot force you into it. Only together can we survive what is coming." Her eyes narrowed. "And if I refuse?" He stopped walking and turned to face her, the moonlight catching the sharp angles of his face. "Then the world will test you in ways you cannot imagine. The Luna Wolf within you is not meant for hiding. It is meant for war, for survival, for power, and for me you will either embrace it or suffer the consequences." A chill ran down her spine. Fear, yes, but also a strange thrill. The challenge in his eyes mirrored the challenge in hers. Neither would yield easily. And yet, beneath the tension, a thread of something unspoken began to weave between them. A connection neither could deny. Night deepened. The forest grew darker, the shadows longer, and the wind whispered through the branches like voices from another time. The Omega stopped at a small clearing, her silver fur gleaming under the moon. "I do not know what this bond means," she said softly, almost to herself, "but I feel it, like fire in my veins." The Alpha stepped closer but did not touch her. "The bond is not just magic. It is trust. It is challenge. It is danger. And it is choice. You may feel fear, but do not let it control you." She looked up at him, and for the first time she saw something behind the Alpha's cold mask. A flicker of doubt, a shadow of loneliness. The man who ruled with power and fear carried within him the weight of a past she could not yet know. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them shook. A distant roar echoed through the forest, and the trees trembled. The Omega's wolf instincts flared. Danger approached, swift and deadly. The Alpha's posture shifted, alert, commanding. "Stay close," he ordered. "Do not run." "Do not hesitate," the Omega's heart pounded. The bond hummed between them, alive, electric. She could feel his presence in every fiber of her being, guiding, restraining, protecting. And for the first time, she did not resist. As a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, eyes glowing red, the Alpha drew his sword, and the Omega crouched, ready to strike with claws and fangs she had never used before. The forest was silent but for the wind and the distant ominous roar. They were alone, and yet together. The figure stepped closer, revealing the glint of a weapon and the intent to harm. The Omega's fur bristled, her teeth bared, her senses razor-sharp. The Alpha's hand was steady on his sword, his eyes locked on the threat. And in that moment, time seemed to freeze, the world holding its breath. "You are mine to protect," he said, almost softly but with steel behind his words. The Omega met his gaze, and something shifted in her chest. She did not understand it yet, but she felt it. Trust, fear, and something dangerously like longing. The shadow lunged. The Alpha moved first, fast and precise, blocking the attack with a single stroke. The Omega followed instinctively, her claws flashing, her wolf form powerful and swift. Together they were a storm, human and Luna Wolf, Alpha and Omega, bonded by fate and challenge. When the dust settled, the shadow lay defeated, and the forest was silent again. The Omega breathed heavily, her silver fur matted with snow and sweat. She looked at the Alpha, who stood tall, victorious yet somehow changed. "You see," he said quietly, sheathing his sword, "the world does not wait for the timid or the weak, and neither does fate. We must face it, together." The Omega swallowed, feeling the truth of his words deep in her chest. Fear, yes, but also power, and something she dared not name. She stepped closer, her eyes meeting his. "Together," she whispered. The moon shone bright above, silver and eternal, as the first bond between the Alpha King and the Luna Wolf was sealed, not by chains or rituals, but by fire, challenge, and the unspoken promise that neither would face the darkness alone. Far in the shadows, a figure watched, whispering to the wind. "The bond has begun. The prophecy moves. Watch the Alpha and the Luna Wolf." And with that, the night held its breath, waiting for the trials yet to come. The forest was quiet now, but the silence felt heavy, as if the trees themselves were watching. The snow crunched beneath the Alpha King's boots as he led the Luna Wolf through winding paths hidden from the ordinary world. She moved carefully, muscles coiled and senses alert, yet still struggling to control the power coursing through her body. "You move cautiously, but too much fear clouds your instincts," the Alpha said, his deep voice cutting through the cold air. He walked ahead, his form tall and commanding, like a shadow stretched by the moonlight. "Your strength is new, untrained, but it is dangerous if left unchecked." The Omega lifted her silver head, ears twitching. Her eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight. "I don't need lessons from you," she said sharply, though a tremor ran through her words. "I can fight. I can survive. I always have." The Alpha stopped, turning slowly to face her. His piercing gaze met hers, calm yet unyielding. "You survived as an Omega because you hid from the world," he said, his words deliberate. "Now hiding will not save you. The bond we share, it will push you past limits you never imagined." Her tail flicked with irritation. "And if I refuse your bond?" If I reject it? You cannot, he replied quietly, almost mournfully. The bond is not just power. It is connection. It is survival. It is life or death. You may try to deny it, but it will guide you, whether you like it or not. She swallowed, anger rising in her chest, but beneath it a strange awareness. He was right. Already she felt his presence inside her mind like a shadow at the edge of her thoughts. It frightened her and strangely comforted her at the same time. The Alpha led her to a small clearing, a place he called the Moonfall Grove. Snow lay thick on the ground, but here, the trees bent back slightly, forming a natural arena of shadows and silver light. Here, he said. You will begin. Begin what? She asked, wary, but curiosity trembled in her voice. Control, strength, your true power, he said. We will train until the bond is not a chain but a force we both command. Her ears flattened. You want me to obey you? No, he said firmly. I want you to fight beside me as equal. But first you must understand your limits. And mine. The Omega's gaze narrowed. She wanted to argue, to resist, but instinct took over. Her body ached with energy she did not yet understand. A storm of claws, teeth, and senses that demanded attention. She crouched low to the ground, silver fur bristling. The Alpha watched silently, his eyes calculating as she leapt forward. Instinct guided her strikes, powerful and precise, but raw. He dodged easily, but with each movement he tested her, challenged her, forcing her to think faster, move sharper, act with intention. Hours passed like this. Snow fell, cold and soft, but the grove remained illuminated by the moon as if time itself had paused. She grew tired, frustration burning through her. She wanted to refuse, to run, to scream, but he never let her. His presence was constant, steady, unyielding. You hesitate, he said finally, voice low and steady. Why? I don't trust it, she admitted, voice trembling. This bond, this power, I don't know if I can control it. He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. Control is not given. It is earned. And trust is not demanded. It is chosen. Something in the way he said it made her heart tighten. She did not like him. She did not trust him, and yet, a strange heat pooled in her chest, a thread of connection she could not yet name. Then earn it, she said through gritted teeth, her claws flexing instinctively. Show me. Prove I can trust you. The Alpha's lips curved slightly, just enough to hint at a smile. Very well. Watch closely. He shifted, fluid and silent, and for the first time she saw the Alpha not as king, not as ruler, not as fear, but as predator and protector. His movements were poetry, swift, controlled, precise. He was a storm contained in a human form, power wrapped in restraint. And in that display, the Omega felt something stir. Admiration, fear, desire, all tangled together. Days passed in training. The Omega learned quickly, her Luna Wolf instincts giving her strength and speed far beyond ordinary beings. The Alpha guided her, challenged her, pushed her. He never touched her without purpose, never demanded anything but focus and trust. And with each session, the bond grew stronger. One night, beneath the full moon, she awoke to find him standing silently at the edge of the grove. His eyes caught hers, silver in the moonlight. You are changing, he said softly, faster than I expected. I am not yours, she whispered, though the words felt fragile in her mouth. I am still my own. Yet here you are, he replied, learning from me, following me, fighting with me. Bonds are strange, Omega, they do not break easily, and neither do they form lightly. Her fur bristled, instinct and pride warring within her, but for the first time she allowed herself to step closer, not in submission, not in obedience, but in curiosity. A sudden sound shattered the stillness, a branch snapping, too deliberate to be accidental. The Omega's ears twitched, her body low, claws unsheathed. The Alpha drew his sword, eyes narrowing. Something, or someone, was approaching. The shadow moved fast, almost too fast to see. A figure cloaked, eyes glowing red, stepped from the darkness. The Omega growled, fangs bared, instinct screaming at her to attack. Stay, the Alpha commanded, his voice cutting through the panic like steel. Do not strike until I say. The figure lunged, and in a heartbeat the Alpha moved. Sword flashing, movements fluid and precise, he blocked the attack. The Omega's claws followed instinctively, slicing through the air, striking where she instinctively knew the shadow was vulnerable. Together they moved as one, Alpha and Luna Wolf, predator and protector, bonded in power yet still learning each other's rhythm. When the fight ended, the figure fled into the trees, leaving only silence and snow. The Omega's chest heaved, her body trembling from adrenaline and exhaustion. She looked at the Alpha, expecting anger, scolding, or disdain. But he did not scold. He sheathed his sword and met her gaze. "You survived," he said quietly. "And you fought well." She lowered her claws slowly, breathing hard. I could not have done it alone," she admitted, though the words were bittersweet. Pride and irritation mixed together. "Nor could I," he said, his voice low, carrying weight she could almost feel in her chest. "The bond, it is not just magic. It is trust. It is instinct. And it is survival. You and I, we must learn it together." For the first time, she looked at him differently. Not as captor, not as king, not as ruler of fear, but as something else. Protector, partner, a force she could not yet name. The night deepened, and the wind whispered through the trees. Silver light painted the grove in eerie patterns, shadows dancing like spirits. The Omega crouched low, her tail swishing slowly, fur bristling, eyes glowing faintly. The Alpha stood beside her, sword at his side, calm and watchful. And in that stillness, the bond between them strengthened. Not by chains, not by fear, not by command, but by challenge, by survival, by trust slowly earned in the heat of battle and the quiet of the night. A distant howl echoed through the forest, long and mournful, and the Omega's ears twitched. Another threat was coming, one far greater than any shadowy figure or thief. She looked at the Alpha, a mixture of fear and determination in her eyes. "We face this together," he said, as if reading her thoughts. She nodded slowly. "Together," she whispered, and as the moon climbed higher, silver and eternal, the forest seemed to hold its breath. Danger, power, and something deeper, connection, trust, and unspoken longing loomed on the horizon. The journey had only just begun. The moon hung high and pale over the kingdom, its silver light spilling through the canopy of frost-covered trees. The Alpha King and the Luna Wolf moved silently through the forest, their steps careful, measured, as though the shadows themselves might strike at any moment. The bond between them was growing stronger, yet still untested in ways that mattered most. The Omega's new powers had begun to awaken further. Visions, premonitions, glimpses of things before they happened, but she did not yet understand them. Sometimes they came as whispers in her mind, sometimes as flashes in the moonlight. She feared them, yet they fascinated her. She had never felt such power before, nor such connection to another being. "You are restless," the Alpha said quietly, breaking the silence. His eyes, sharp and steady, seemed to see everything, even what she tried to hide. "Your instincts pull you toward the forest, toward the wild. You are learning too fast, too strong. And the bond? It is influencing you, whether you realize it or not." "I'm not afraid of my power," she replied, though a flicker of doubt lingered. "I can control it, I just don't understand it fully yet." "Control comes with understanding," he said, "and understanding comes with trust." He paused, watching her intently. "You still hold back from me." "Why?" She hesitated. The question cut deeper than she expected. "Because I have no reason to trust anyone," she admitted finally. "Not kings, not strangers, not even you." His gaze softened slightly, though his voice remained firm. "Trust is not given lightly, but neither is power. The bond does not demand your obedience, Omega. It asks for your choice. And soon, choice will become necessity." They reached a hidden grove where ancient stones rose in a circle, etched with symbols older than memory. The Alpha gestured for her to stop. "This place holds secrets of the Luna Wolves. Sit, listen, learn." The Omega crouched, tail swishing nervously. She felt a hum in the air, deep and resonant, as though the stones themselves were alive. The Alpha placed a hand on one, and the carvings glowed faintly, silver and ethereal. "Your ancestors were not ordinary Luna Wolves," he began. "They were guardians, protectors of the balance between humans and wolves. Long ago, kings feared their power, their insight, their bond with the moon. Many were enslaved, forced into servitude or death. You are the last of that line." Her breath caught. I never knew," she whispered. "All my life I thought I was ordinary, weak." "You were never weak," he said firmly. "You survived. You hid, you endured. And now, you are reborn. Stronger than most who have walked this world." Her silver fur bristled with emotion, pride, and fear mingling. "And what about you?" she asked cautiously. Why did you choose me? Why did you awaken me? He turned his gaze toward the moon, his eyes reflecting its light. Because you are meant for more than survival. You are meant for power and, perhaps, for partnership. The bond we share is not simple ownership or obedience. It is a test, a challenge, and I will not fail it, but neither can you. The Omega felt the hum of the stones in her body, the pulse of the moon in her veins. She had never felt such connection to anything, to anyone. Fear still lingered, but a spark of something else. A growing trust, a strange fascination flared within her. Before she could speak, the wind shifted sharply, carrying whispers of danger. The Alpha's body tensed, instincts sharp, his sword already in hand. The Omega felt the pull of her own power, her wolf instincts flaring, senses stretching toward the unseen threat. They are coming, he said, low and urgent. You must prepare. From the shadows of the forest, figures moved. Enemies cloaked in darkness, their intent clear in the way they carried themselves. The Omega's claws flexed, her silver eyes glowing faintly as she crouched beside the Alpha. She could feel the bond thrum between them, a pulse of connection that guided her, warned her, strengthened her. The first attacker lunged, swift and silent. The Alpha blocked with his sword, while the Omega struck instinctively, claws raking through the air with precision born of instinct and raw power. They moved together, Alpha and Luna Wolf, human and wolf, bonded in ways that went beyond command or obedience. After the skirmish, the attackers retreated, melting into the shadows. The Omega's chest heaved with exhaustion, her fur matted with snow and sweat. She looked at the Alpha, expecting judgment or scolding, but found only calm, measured pride. You fought well, he said quietly, but there will be more. Always more. She lowered her claws slowly, a shiver running through her body. I don't know if I can handle it, she admitted, voice trembling. The bond, the power, the danger, it's too much. He stepped closer, eyes meeting hers. Then learn, grow, trust you are not alone in this. The bond does not force you to follow. It strengthens you, guides you, challenges you. You and I, we must rise together or fall separately. Her tail swished, tension warring with curiosity. And if I fail? You will not, he said firmly, placing a hand on the edge of the stone circle. Because I will not let you. Not while the bond exists. Not while the moon guides us. The Omega felt something stir deep in her chest. Trust, yes, but more. Something electric, unspoken, that made her pulse quicken. She had resisted the Alpha for so long. Yet now she realized that resistance alone would not protect her. She needed to understand, to embrace, to survive. Suddenly a vision flickered before her eyes, a glimpse of fire, silver eyes, a shadowed figure falling beneath the weight of its own power. The Omega staggered back, breath quickening. What is it? The Alpha asked immediately, moving to her side. I saw something, she whispered. A warning, maybe, a memory. I'm not sure. Focus, he instructed calmly. Do not fear the visions. They are part of your gift, your heritage. They are meant to guide you. She closed her eyes, drawing breath, letting the power flow through her, letting the bond connect them. Slowly, the vision faded, leaving only a sense of urgency and foreboding. Something was coming. Something stronger than any enemy they had faced so far. Night deepened, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. The Omega turned to the Alpha, silver eyes glowing faintly. I feel it too. The danger. Something bigger is coming. He nodded, eyes scanning the darkened woods. Yes, and when it arrives, we must be ready. Together, the bond. It is not just for power. It is for survival. And for trust. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the cold wind weaving through the trees. The Omega felt the Alpha's presence beside her, steady and commanding, and the bond thrummed like a heartbeat. Fear and tension mingled with a strange warmth, a connection she could not yet name. Will it always be like this? She asked softly, almost to herself. Danger, power, the unknown? Perhaps, he replied. But so is life. So is destiny. We do not choose the challenges we face, Omega. We only choose how we meet them. Her silver fur bristled, and she nodded slowly. Then we face it. Together. The Alpha's eyes softened, the faintest hint of a smile touching his lips. Together, he echoed. But even as they stood, the wind shifted again. A distant howl, low and mournful, echoed through the forest. The Omega's ears pricked, instincts screaming. Another presence approached, one that neither she nor the Alpha had anticipated. The Alpha's grip on his sword tightened. Stay close, he warned. This is only the beginning. Something waits for us beyond the shadows, something older than the bond itself. The Omega crouched beside him, fur bristling, senses alert. She had never felt such fear nor such thrill. The bond thrummed alive, unbreakable, binding them together for whatever trials were to come. And as the moon rose higher, silver and eternal, the forest seemed to whisper secrets of power, of destiny, and of a bond that could either save them or destroy them. The night held its breath, waiting for the storm that would come with the dawn. Dawn had not yet broken when the Alpha King and the Luna Wolf emerged from the forest into the valley below. Mist rolled over the ground like ghostly waves, and the air was heavy with tension. The enemy clan they had sensed for days was close, and the Alpha knew they would not wait. The Omega, her silver fur glinting faintly in the dim light, crouched beside him, instincts alert and muscles coiled. "You can feel it too," he said quietly, almost as if reading her mind. "Yes," she whispered. "They are near, stronger than before." He nodded, his sharp gaze scanning the mist. "Then we must be ready. Trust the bond. Trust yourself. Trust me." Her tail swished, a nervous energy radiating through her. She had come far since their first meeting, but she knew the trials were far from over. Her Luna Wolf powers had grown, her instincts sharpened, yet the enemy ahead would test them in ways neither of them could fully prepare for. The valley floor trembled slightly, a warning carried on the wind. Shadows shifted, and the first attackers emerged from the fog, humans trained in dark arts wielding blades and magic alike. Behind them, more figures approached, creatures twisted by curses and malice, their eyes glowing with unnatural light. The Omega crouched lower, claws flexing, teeth bared. "We fight?" she asked, silver eyes locked on him. "We survive," the Alpha corrected. "Fight only if necessary. Move with the bond, not against it." The first clash came like a storm. The Alpha moved with calculated precision, his sword a blur, deflecting blades and striking with lethal accuracy. The Omega followed instinctively, her silver fur shimmering as she leapt and struck, claws and fangs meeting enemy flesh. They moved as one, human and Luna Wolf, Alpha and Omega, yet still learning the rhythm of each other's strength. Despite their skill, the enemy pressed harder than before. Dark magic rippled through the mist, striking at them with invisible force. The Omega growled, the bond thrumming violently, and for the first time she unleashed a surge of her Luna Wolf energy. The silver glow around her intensified, illuminating the fog, her howl echoing across the valley like a clarion call. The Alpha's eyes widened slightly, not in fear, but in awe. "Control it!" he shouted over the din. She nodded, forcing herself to focus. The surge of power flowed through her, precise and deadly, pushing back the enemy without overwhelming her own mind. Together they drove the first wave back, the bond between them humming stronger than ever, unspoken communication guiding their every movement. After the clash, the mist thickened, hiding the next wave of attackers. The Omega's breathing was rapid, chest heaving, silver fur glinting with frost and sweat. "They keep coming," she whispered, voice tight. "They always do," the Alpha said grimly. "Until the heart of the threat is destroyed, they will not stop. And we must face it, whatever it may be." As they moved deeper into the valley, she sensed a presence stronger than any ordinary enemy, ancient, dark, and powerful. The Alpha's hand tightened on his sword. "The one behind this is older than either of us imagined," he said quietly, her silver eyes narrowed. "Then we face them together?" "Yes," he said. No hesitation, no fear. Together. They reached the center of the valley, where a blackened stone circle marred the earth. The enemy's leader awaited, cloaked in shadows, eyes glowing crimson. Around him runes pulsed with dark energy, feeding the creatures at his command. The Omega growled, silver fur bristling. "He is strong. Stronger than the others." "He is," the Alpha admitted, "and cunning. But he underestimates us. And he will regret it." The leader raised a hand and the dark energy surged toward them. The Alpha blocked with his sword, the force of the magic sending tremors through the ground. The Omega leapt, instincts guiding her, claws and fangs striking precisely, her power amplified by the bond they shared. But the enemy was relentless. Magic and steel rained upon them, testing their strength, their control, and their trust in each other. The Omega felt a shadow of doubt. What if they could not survive? What if this power, this bond, was not enough? The Alpha sensed her fear, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder mid-leap. "Focus," he ordered. "The bond will guide you. Trust it. Trust us." Her body shivered and she felt the power of the bond surge, connecting them in ways she could feel deep in her chest. She inhaled sharply, centering herself, and with a roar she struck with precise fury, breaking the enemy's defenses. The Alpha followed, blade flashing, driving the dark magic back step by step. Finally, the enemy faltered. The leader's dark energy faltered under their combined strength. The Omega's howl pierced the valley, silver light exploding around her, and the Alpha's sword struck true, shattering the dark runes and breaking the leader's power. Silence followed. The mist cleared slightly, revealing the aftermath: fallen enemies, broken stones, and the exhausted but victorious forms of Alpha and Luna Wolf. The Omega dropped to her knees, fur matted and body trembling, yet her eyes shone with fierce pride. The Alpha stepped beside her, placing a hand lightly on her head. "You have grown stronger than I imagined," he said, voice low. "And yet, there is more to learn. The bond, it is not just strength. It is heart, mind, and spirit." She looked up at him, breath ragged, silver eyes glowing. I feel it. The bond, it is more than I thought. It is connection. It is trust. Maybe even something else." He met her gaze steadily, a faint shadow of emotion passing across his face. "Perhaps," he said quietly. "Perhaps. But emotions are dangerous in battle, Omega. They can guide, or they can destroy. You must learn to balance them." A long pause followed. The wind stirred, carrying whispers of danger from distant lands. The Omega sensed it, a premonition, a warning she could not ignore. Something even darker, older, and more dangerous than this battle was coming. "Another threat?" she asked, unease in her voice. "Yes," he admitted, "and it will test the bond like never before. But you are ready." Almost, her silver ears twitched, tail swishing. "Almost? Then what must I do?" "Trust yourself," he said simply. "Trust the bond, trust us. And when the moment comes, you will know what must be done." She nodded, though fear still lingered in her chest. The bond pulsed between them, a living, breathing force guiding, strengthening, and connecting. She could feel the Alpha's presence in every fiber of her being, and she knew, whatever awaited them, they would face it together. As the sun began to rise over the horizon, casting pale gold across the valley, the Omega and Alpha stood side by side. The battle had tested them, forged their trust, and strengthened their bond. But the shadows were far from gone, and the darkness they would face next was older, wiser, and far more cunning. The Omega looked at the Alpha, silver eyes shimmering. "Together?" she whispered. "Together," he replied, his hand brushing lightly against hers, almost instinctively. The bond between them hummed, a pulse of strength, trust, and something deeper neither dared name aloud. From the distant mountains, a howl echoed, a sound older than memory, warning of dangers yet to come. The Omega's fur bristled, instinct screaming, but she did not flinch. She would face it. They would face it. The bond would guide them, and as the wind carried the howl across the valley, the Alpha and the Luna Wolf readied themselves, hearts and spirits intertwined, ready to confront the darkness that would test their trust, their power, and the bond that had begun in fire, fear, and fate. The first storm had passed. The next was already forming, and the bond between Alpha and Omega would be the key to survival. And perhaps something more. The forest was silent, but the air felt alive with tension, a pulse of unseen energy that made the hair on the Omega's silver fur stand on end. The Alpha King stood beside her, his presence calm yet commanding, as if he absorbed the storm around them. The sun had long disappeared behind thick clouds, leaving only a twilight of gray shadows and faint moonlight. "They are here," the Alpha said quietly, eyes scanning the horizon. "The final threat, stronger than anything we have faced. You must stay close." The Omega nodded, chest tight with anticipation and fear, yet also a strange thrill. The bond between them thrummed like a heartbeat, connecting them in ways deeper than she had ever known. Every instinct, every movement, every thought was in tune with him. She realized that she no longer feared the bond. She embraced it, letting it guide her, strengthen her, and awaken parts of herself she had never known. From the shadows of the forest, figures began to emerge, tall, dark shapes, eyes glowing with ancient malice. They moved with an unnatural grace, Creatures twisted by curses and dark magic, yet each step radiated power and intent. At their head, a towering figure cloaked in midnight energy paused, crimson eyes fixed on them. The Omega's breath caught. She had sensed this presence before, but now it was tangible, real, and more dangerous than any enemy they had faced. "You feel it," the Alpha whispered. "The darkness. The force that commands them. It is older than us, wiser than any foe we have encountered. But we face it together." She clenched her fists, fur bristling, and nodded. Together. The enemy advanced, and the ground seemed to shiver beneath their combined weight. The Omega's silver eyes glowed fiercely, her body radiating power as the bond with the Alpha pulsed like a drumbeat in her chest. She leapt forward instinctively, claws striking with precision, guided by instinct and bond. The Alpha followed, blade flashing, movements fluid and deadly. They were no longer two separate beings fighting side by side. They were one. Every strike, every dodge, every motion flowed naturally between them, as if the bond had taught them a language older than words. The towering figure raised a hand and a wave of dark energy surged toward them, knocking trees aside, sending snow swirling into the air. The Omega roared, silver light bursting around her as the bond amplified her powers. Together, she and the Alpha pushed back the force step by step, their strength and unity unmatched. "You are ready," the Alpha said, eyes locked on her. "Trust the bond fully. No hesitation." "I trust you," she whispered, voice trembling but firm. "And myself." The towering enemy charged, dark energy crackling around its form. The Omega met it head-on, claws slashing, fangs ready, while the Alpha's blade struck in perfect harmony. Their movements became a dance of light and shadow, silver and steel against the darkness. Hours or perhaps minutes, time blurred, passed in relentless battle. The Omega felt herself pushed to the edge, her powers tested, her instincts stretched, yet she never wavered. The Alpha was always beside her, guiding, protecting, challenging, strengthening her. The bond was no longer merely connection. It was part of her, part of him, a living force that pulsed in their veins and hearts alike. Finally, the enemy faltered. The towering figure's dark energy weakened under their relentless assault. Their strikes precise, their bond unbreakable. With a final roar, the Omega channeled all her power through the bond, silver light exploding outward, illuminating the forest, shattering shadows, and breaking the enemy's hold. The figure collapsed, dissipating into the night, leaving only silence and the faint echo of its malice fading into nothing. The Omega fell to her knees, breathing heavily, body trembling but victorious. The Alpha knelt beside her, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder, calm and steady. "You did it," he said softly, voice carrying awe and pride. "You controlled it, controlled yourself, controlled the bond. You are stronger than I ever imagined." Her silver eyes glimmered with tears she could not hold back. I could not have done it without you," she admitted, voice soft, raw with emotion. "The bond, it guided me. You guided me. I understand now." He looked into her eyes, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touching his lips. "The bond is not just power. It is trust. It is choice. It is connection. And now it is complete. Between us." For the first time, the Omega allowed herself to fully embrace the moment, to feel the bond in all its depth. Not just instinct, not just survival, but something more profound. Her body relaxed, fur settling, heart racing with an emotion she had not dared name until now. The forest seemed to exhale with them, the moonlight soft and silver, illuminating the clearing as though blessing their triumph. The Alpha extended a hand to her, and she took it instinctively, feeling the warmth and strength of his presence. "I am yours," he said simply, the words carrying weight beyond command or claim. "And you are mine." Her heart skipped. Not mine in ownership, not mine in submission, but in partnership, in trust, in the bond that had been tested in fire, fear, and fury. She nodded slowly, understanding the depth of what he meant. "Yes," she whispered. "Together, always." A gentle breeze stirred, rustling the snow-laden trees. The forest was quiet now, save for the faint sound of their breathing, their bond echoing like a heartbeat. For the first time, the Omega felt at peace, powerful, connected and safe beside the Alpha, not because she had to be, but because she chose to be. They stood, side by side, silver and shadow, moonlight and steel, bonded in ways deeper than words could describe. The night had tested them, challenged them, and revealed truths about themselves and each other. The bond had been forged in fire and darkness, but it now glowed with light, trust, and unspoken understanding. The Alpha turned to the Omega, his gaze steady, unwavering. "This is not the end," he said. "The world is still full of shadows. But now we face them together. The bond is strong, and so are we. Nothing can break it." She nodded, tail brushing against the snow, fur settling, silver eyes shining with clarity. "Together," she echoed. "Always." For a long moment they stood in silence, the forest around them holding its breath, the bond humming softly, a living force that connected them more deeply than any words or vows ever could. The past, the danger, the fear, all had shaped them, tested them, but the bond had endured. And with it, so had they. As the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, painting the sky with silver and gold, the Omega and the Alpha King looked toward the future. It was uncertain, filled with challenges yet unseen, but they would face it together, as partners, as equals, as two souls bound by trust, power, and destiny. The Omega lifted her head, silver fur glinting in the new light, eyes reflecting strength and resolve. "Whatever comes," she said softly, "we face it together, the bond. It will guide us." The Alpha's hand brushed lightly against hers, a silent promise. "Always," he whispered. And as the sun rose over the kingdom, casting light on the frost-covered trees, the forest seemed to shimmer with quiet magic. The bond between Alpha and Omega was complete. Not just a connection of power, but a union of trust, choice, and heart. They had survived, grown, and transformed. The night of shadows had passed. A new day had dawned, filled with possibility, strength, and the promise of what they could achieve together. And in the quiet of the forest, the Alpha and Luna Wolf stood as one, ready to face whatever the world might throw at them, bound by a power stronger than fear, stronger than darkness, stronger than anything that had come before. For the first time, the Omega smiled, not from victory, not from power, but from understanding. She was not alone. She was not weak. She was bonded, strong, and alive. And beside her, the Alpha King, the man who had guided, challenged, and trusted her, stood as her equal, her partner, her bond, her future. Together they stepped forward, silver light and shadow merging into one, ready to meet the destiny that awaited them, stronger for every trial, every fear, and every moment they had faced together. The bond had been fulfilled, and the legend of the Alpha and Luna Wolf began.